So often I get asked, what do you study or where are you studying? I tend to take it as a compliment that I look young and not as a comment on my maturity. People then tend to be very encouraged when I tell them that I did attend university but dropped out after just 7 weeks. Good on you tends to be the reply, normally followed by a question of why I ceased my studies. Well, I was studying global development. It looked promising on paper, a mixture of economics, politics and international relations. Could have been up my street. Alas, when I got there, I found out that the entire first year was based on studying the apparently impending climate apocalypse. Now, as a Christian, I've read this little book you may have heard of named Revelation. It spells out the end of history pretty clearly. Jesus is coming back on the clouds, and the only fire will be in his eyes as he returns to judge the world. So, I don't believe in a climate apocalypse at all. I'd therefore be sitting in my lectures and seminars trying to reconcile my faith and the theory that was being presented by the faculty as fact. Thankfully, soon came the straw that broke the camel's back, a seminar on the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, in which the entire room was lamenting the fact that women in America had just lost the right to kill their children in the wake of the Dobbs versus Jackson ruling. I felt there was no room for dissent. My forms were filled out, and the following day I was gone. It left me thinking, why would an environmentalist, or at least the slightly more extreme climate alarmist, support the ritual slaughter of babies? How have they drawn a link between the two? More importantly, how can we break the mindset? I thought it's my duty to see, so let's explore together. I'm Ben Weller, and this is my Viewpoint. A few weeks ago, I read an article in The Guardian. I know, I bring it upon myself. The title of it was simply, I had an abortion due to climate anxiety. How can I come to terms with it? The title is fairly self-explanatory. A married woman who was already a mother of 2 and trying for a baby made the rash decision to have an abortion because she was worried the baby would be caught up in a climate catastrophe. She regretted it. She ended up on antidepressants and in counselling. Ultimately, she managed to placate her guilty conscience by writing off her abortion as a benevolent thing, stopping a child from suffering in a world that's about to fan into flame. We know this wasn't benevolent. Murder is never benevolent. But the issue I'm left grappling with is less about how she can come to terms with her decision, but how we can shape society to come to terms with the reality that they don't need to protect the coming generation from an inferno that probably won't come. I'm left at a loss. I don't quite know how. The problem with this climate alarmism is that it has been internalized after years of educational and media indoctrination. And as a doctrine, it's entirely hopeless. People are told to stop driving, not to go on holiday, eat veg and to recycle more. But that, even those personal efforts, do nothing. The world is doomed and there is no redemption. The mindset was best summed up in the movement's infancy by the Vice President Al Gore in his 2006 documentary, An Inconvenient Truth. He warned of mass population extinction if we do not act. People are being sat in cinemas and lecture theatres, told they're going to die, that they should be angry about it, then shown videos of great factories pumping out smoke that they have no control over, and that nothing they can do will help. Why bring a child into a world that will end in pain and terror with no silver lining? This movement is so embedded in culture, but it did not start around the turn of the millennium with Al Gore, as many seem to remember, but far earlier. It started with the English parson Thomas Malthus, whose 1798 essay on the principle of population proposed that population grows exponentially whilst food supply increases only arithmetically, leading to inevitable catastrophic checks like famine, war, and disease. Malthus argued that poverty was an unavoidable result of this growth and opposed welfare for the poor, while endorsing ruthless population control measures, which then informed the writings of Marie Stopes and Adolf Hitler, and also the late 60s scaremonger and American author Paul Ehrlich, whose population bomb told the world that people use up too many resources and there should be less of us. Anti-natalist culture has been a common theme in every Western institution ever since. In polling commissioned in 2023 by the New Conservatives group, Whitestone Insight found that 39% of British 18 to 24-year-old girls who do not desire children have held off because of environmental worries. That went up to 43% for those aged 25 to 35. There was no meaningful change in attitudes depending on social class. Only 8% of those women said accelerated net zero policies would convince them to start a family. This is the doom loop in action. People don't want children because they think it will harm the planet and the baby, and they can't be convinced out of it as they've been told there's no hope. It seems the words of Greta Thunberg telling the world to panic and that it is now too late have been heeded, and now people are, if not avoiding, actively destroying their children for it. What I believe to be a lie, that global warming will destroy society, has fed into a culture that will actually destroy society, one of childlessness. So I come back to my original predicament. What can we actually do to solve this? If large swathes of the coming generation genuinely believe the world will end in a flaming nightmare, how do we encourage them to bring life into the world or preserve the lives they have a hand in creating? We must, of course, reduce the entrenchment of climate alarmism in our media and educational institutions, but the problem is that the coming generations of academics and journalists are already up to their eyes in the doomerist theory. It feels difficult to end a viewpoint this way, as I feel I should give you something tangible to do to bring down this worldview, but I can't. In the same way, the woman in The Guardian asked, "How do I come to terms with global warming-fueled abortion?" I can't give a proper answer. Abortion is always evil. There's obviously no disputing that. But for those actively refusing to bring children into a world they've been told will end in tragedy, can you really blame them? You see, the climate alarmists and I do have one thing in common, that man's sin will be a large part of the tying up of human history. Theirs, however, is a dead end. Mine is one of eternal life. I don't mean to use this camera as a pulpit, but my only real hope is that in the coming quiet revival, there can be an uptick in one thing that counters despair and hopelessness: faith in something more than man. After all, we're here for a reason, and it isn't self-annihilation. So let's have a little faith. It's the only way we can defeat this dreadful mindset of death.